this story is really disturbing. And again, this is a massive failure. And this is what I was talking about with Weigel. You've got the Senate Democrats trying to make some deal over the border so that they can get the supplemental money for Ukraine and Israel. And then there's a couple other small sort of sundry items in that package. And the Democrats are tacking to the right when it comes to immigration because they think that they can in some way mitigate the move in the country to the right on immigration and mitigate the electoral chances of that, and they can't. And what they're doing is they're not setting themselves up, in my estimation, to be able to respond to Donald Trump on this issue in a way that is going to resonate with the American public. This story, there's two aspects to this. One is it's incredibly horrific and inhumane. And the other is that the Biden administration is just not in a position to highlight this story. They are in a position to highlight this story and make it a campaign issue, but their support for immigration and immigrants, they're so, whether it's a political stance or not, they can't step up and deal with this. CBS News reports a woman and 2 children drowned in the Rio Grande on Friday while trying to enter the U.S. This is near a section of the southern border where the Texas National Guard soldiers prevented and have prevented federal Border Patrol agents from processing and rescuing migrants. So federal officials and a Texas Congressman, Henry Cuellar, I'm no fan of, but he doesn't like the idea that people were almost purposely killed. Do you remember that story? When did we run that Greg Abbott thing where he said we can't shoot it? Did we run that on Thursday?
Yeah.
And Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, was like, we're doing everything we can to deny these people except for shoot them. And if we did, then the DOJ would come after us. I'm not so sure after this. So Texas National Guard soldiers deployed by Greg Abbott would not allow Border Patrol agents to attempt to rescue the migrants. Earlier this week, Texas National Guard soldiers seized control of a public park in Eagle Pass that Border Patrol has been using to hold migrants. And on Friday night, Border Patrol identified 6 migrants in the Rio Grande who were in distress near the park. Agents unsuccessfully attempted to contact state officials by the emergency by phone. Then when the Border Patrol agents went to the park and asked the Texas National Guard to allow them to go and help the migrants, they were denied entry. And the next day, they found that a woman and 2 children drowned. Of those 6, 3 of them drowned. I mean, the idea that the DOJ isn't bringing a case here, the idea that the federal government is just allowing Texas to unconstitutionally take control of this border, and then I think criminally prevented the Border Patrol from going and rescuing these migrants. It's an outrage. And if on top of it being just sort of like a just inhumane and, brutal, and I think criminal, but also the National Democrats are not in a position to sort of like make an issue of this because of their desire to sort of like be seen as not being supportive of immigrant rights. And so there's no way to engage in this issue that the Republican Party is going to be talking about constantly. I mean, expert dog kissers are saying Biden needs to call Texas bluff and send federal troops to the border and enforce border policy. I'm not convinced that's wrong. Or what you do is you nationalize those National Guard units. And you now say your commander in chief is not the governor of Texas. It's the president of the United States. And you're going to stand down. And whoever gave the order to not allow Border Patrol to get in there and rescue these migrants is going to stand trial for manslaughter.
And that would go a ways towards helping the country interpret these things as opposed to just granting the premise every time.
100%. I mean, you know, I hate to frame it in the context of politics, but it's not just a question of like electoral politics.
Constitutional.
It's not just a question of constitutional politics. It is a question of like, how do you convince the American public about policy decisions that we make or that others make? And you make them pay a political price, because the Republicans have already announced, essentially, they did it on a call over the weekend. We're not going to do anything in terms of immigration policy whatsoever. We're just going to continue to use it as a way to demagogue. I mean, this is, and the Democrats can't offer any type of response to it. It's just, it's nuts. It's nuts when Henry Cuellar has to be the most reasonable person in any conversation. Really an outrage.